Welcome to episode 65 of the 3am Fear podcast. This was just another beautiful day for the residents of the Cecil Hotel. They were getting ready for their day when they realized that the water pressure was very less. In fact, the drinking water did not seem clean at all. It kind of stank. It had this brownish, almost dark, closer to blackish color. It was after waiting for almost forever did the water start to be clear. One by one, the residents started contacting the front desk, asking them what is wrong with the water. A person was sent to check the water tanks to make sure that everything was running smoothly. As the person went up to the water tank, he had no idea what he was about to just witness. There were 4 huge tanks set on top of concrete blocks. As he stepped closer and then opened the tank, he saw a scene that he could never forget. There, floating in the water, was the body of Eliza Lam. What is even more shocking is that she was not the first person to die in the Cecil Hotel. The list is too long. And she would also not be the last person to die in the Cecil Hotel. This is their story. Hello and welcome to the 3am Fear podcast. I'm Nikita Ferrao, mystery and thriller author. On this podcast, I talk about real crimes and real people. Due to the graphic nature of some of this content, listener discretion is advised. You can find the episode show notes on my website 3amfear.com. Let's get started. Eliza Lam's case is one of the most popular unsolved mysteries out there. But it's not the only unsolved mystery in the Cecil Hotel. There are so many more. In this episode, I'm going to talk about Eliza Lam, but along with that, I'm also going to talk about the countless other unsolved mysteries, that is, unsolved deaths that took place in the Cecil Hotel. To understand why the Eliza Lam case became so enormous, you have to know about the place where she died, the Cecil Hotel. Let's start with a bit of history about the Cecil Hotel. Today, it's called the Stay on Main and is located in downtown Los Angeles at 640 South Main Street, just steps away from Skid Row. The term Skid Row originated from the way loggers who transported their logs to the river by sliding them down those grease skids on the streets. Poor immigrants who worked as loggers would wait at the bottom of the hill for transportation because they had to go back up to their camp. Businesses like speakeasies and brothels started to pop up, and over time, Skid Row became known as the place where people with no money came to live. I know this is a bit of a history, but it's very important to know why the Cecil Hotel was so famous and why did Eliza Lam and multiple other people who died ended up there. If you want to go straight to the part, you could just skip a few minutes. In Los Angeles, Skid Row covers 50 city blocks east of downtown and has one of the largest populations of homeless people in the United States. Now here's an idea of what Skid Row looks like. It's like a neighborhood filled with tents, barbecue grills, and bicycles. If you are in India, you would have definitely seen these small houses or tents or small built-up houses that are there on the side of the road or at the side of construction sites. So that is exactly what Skid Row is in the United States. People have to live in these tents and whatever structures they can find. So at night before going to sleep, they would put up these tents, and in the morning when they wake up, they would close down the tents. The whole goal was that no pedestrian, no outsider should be able to see their tents. Now remember, homeless people were not allowed to be there, so they had to make sure that they went to sleep after everyone had left, and they would wake up and remove all their essentials before anyone came to see them. The police initially tried to arrest them, and they would be jailed for a certain period of time, and then they would let go. But after letting go, where would they go? Their home was already taken away from them. They would end up back in the place from where they were arrested, and the whole cycle would repeat once again. In 1970, the city gave up trying to give these people a home because they had no place to go. And finally, it was declared that that area would be the place where all the homeless people would sleep. That was what happened in the 1970. In September of 2005, it was discovered that law enforcement and hospitals were essentially dumping people with nowhere to go in Skid Row, adding to even more homeless population. Los Angeles was literally saying, "We don't want homeless people here," but they had no other option. This background helps to explain why Elisa Lam's case became so popular and how is it connected. The Cecil Hotel was built in 1924 by William Banks Hanner and architect Lloyd Lester Smith. They originally wanted the Cecil Hotel to be a very luxurious place, a hotel where the wealthy businessmen would come to live. Basically, wealthy businessmen who would come for meetings or to attend any conferences. This Cecil Hotel was built especially for them. Think of the top hotels in your places, somewhere where politicians or important people would come to stay. The Cecil Hotel was supposed to be exactly that. They made it as tall as it was legally allowed and decorated it with the Renaissance Revival style, using only the best materials like marble, alabaster statues, and stained glass. When it opened in 1927, it was the best place for high-class travelers. But unfortunately, the Great Depression hit. When the Great Depression hit, the area saw a flood of men seeking better opportunities, and all these men ended up in Skid Row. The area became unsafe for respectable businessmen. Think of any rich businessman. Would they want to stay in a hotel which was very close to a bunch of homeless people sleeping on the road? No, they wouldn't. And that completely affected the Cecil Hotel. The area became so unsafe that Cecil Hotel had to lower its rate just to stay open. And because the rates were so low at this time, it started attracting the wrong type of people. It started attracting prostitutes, drug addicts, and criminals. The Cecil Hotel became famous, even inspiring a hotel in the TV series American Horror Story Hotel. The hotel has a long history of strange deaths, starting in the 1930s. The first recorded death was in 1931 when a man ingested poison. In 1932, a man named Benjamin walked into the hotel carrying a concealed gun. He was later found dead in his room and he had shot himself. In 1934, a 53-year-old former Army Military Corps sergeant, Louis D. Borden, used a razor blade to slit his throat. He left behind suicide notes explaining that he had poor health and that is why he took his own life. In 1937, Grace E. Margot fell from the 9th floor window. Her body got tangled in the telephone wires during fall. She later died in the hospital. Authorities were unsure if her death was an accident, suicide, or homicide. In 1938, a 38-year-old man, Roy Thompson, a United States Marine Corps fireman, jumped from the top floor of the hotel. His body was found on the skylight of a neighboring building. In 1939, Navy officer Irwin Neblett was discovered dead in his room after ingesting poison. In 1940, a 45-year-old teacher, Dorothy Sager, also ingested poison while in the hotel. In 1944, another woman named Dorothy had a particularly tragic death. She was staying in the hotel with her boyfriend, Ben Levine. Unaware that she was pregnant, Dorothy gave birth in the bathroom while her boyfriend was sleeping. Believing the baby was dead, she threw the baby out of the window. The baby landed on a nearby building and died. Dorothy said that she thought that the baby was already dead and that's why she got scared and threw the baby. But by then it was too late to know whether the baby was dead before throwing or after. In 1947, a man named Robert Smith jumped to his death from the 7-story window at Cecil Hotel. In 1954, Helen Gundry also jumped from the 7-story window. She landed on the hotel's marquee, creating a gruesome scene for passerbys. In 1962, Julia Frances Moore jumped to her death from the 8th floor window. Later that year in October, Pauline Orton jumped from the 9th floor window after an argument with her estranged husband. Tragically, she fell on another person walking by and both of them died instantly. In 1964, Goldie Osgood, who was also known as Pigeon, was found dead in a room. Her room was ransacked and she had been stabbed, beaten and raped. Goldie was known for feeding birds and that's why she was nicknamed Pigeon. Shortly after her murder, Jack Hesby Ellinger was spotted in blood-stained clothing near the area where Goldie fed the birds. He was arrested but later cleared, and her murder was never solved. As you can see, there are so many deaths that took place in the Cecil Hotel. I could go on and on because the list is so long. I'm going to put a link in the description which has a Wikipedia page of all the deaths that took place in the Cecil Hotel. And I'm sure that there are a lot more, but these are the documented ones. Out of all those, most of them, I think over 90% of them are unsolved or they have been marked as suicide, but we would never know. Now one thing is, Elizabeth Short, who was also known as the Black Dahlia, was said to have been at the Cecil Hotel just days before she was found dead in 1947. And her murder was extremely brutal. I did an entire episode on what happened to Elizabeth Short. A mother and her child were walking by when they saw Elizabeth Short lying there, brutally murdered. She was brutally stabbed to death. She had a Glasgow smile on her face. So a Glasgow smile is basically when you are cut from ear to ear, giving you a permanent smile even after you die. I have done an in-depth episode on the mystery behind the Black Dahlia, that is Elizabeth Short's death, and you should definitely check it out. I'll link the episode number in the description, and if you're watching this on YouTube, I'll link the episode in the description. Do watch it because it's just as mysterious and sad as it can be. We covered multiple unsolved deaths that took place in the Cecil Hotel. We spoke about the chances of maybe the Black Dahlia was there just days before she was found dead. That is maybe. It's not confirmed that she was there, but some people said that they may have seen her. But now, let's come to serial killers who had lived in the Cecil Hotel. Richard Ramirez. Richard Ramirez, a notorious serial killer, stayed at the Cecil Hotel in 1984 to 1985. He was known to kill at least 13 people while living in the hotel. And he was living in the hotel for only $14 a night. It was said that while he was living there, he often walked through the lobby in his underwear or was even naked. He had blood all over him, and it was said that his bloody clothes would be found in the dumpster outside the hotel. So basically, he would go out, kill his victim, come back to the Cecil Hotel, but just before entering, remove all his bloodied clothes, throw them in the dumpster, and walk right into the hotel and to his room while naked. And no one said anything. And he was there from 1984 to 1985, killing at least 13 people. So you can imagine why no big businessmen wanted to live in the Cecil Hotel, and why I am surprised that the number of deaths in the Cecil Hotel are not more. During his stay, corpses of overdose victims were frequently found in and around the hotel. Eventually, Ramirez was captured and imprisoned in 1985 after he was beaten by an angry mob. I'm planning to do an in-depth episode on Richard Ramirez, so stay tuned for that episode. Jack Unterweger. In 1991, 6 years after Ramirez was caught, Australian journalist and convicted killer Jack Unterweger checked into the Cecil Hotel, possibly inspired by Ramirez's stay. Now the LAPD at that time had ride-alongs. Jack would go on these ride-alongs with the LAPD cops and he would pretend that he was a journalist, and while he was going around with the police, checking out people, telling the police that yeah, I'm a journalist, I'm here to check out the place, he was actually looking out for his next victim. He would find the victim, he would kill them, and he had a special way of killing them. So Jack had been previously convicted of killing an 18-year-old German woman with her own bra, and he had served 15 years in prison. After his release, he killed again, targeting sex workers in Austria and LA, strangling them with their own bras. So basically, he would go out with the police, he would find his next victim, and then murder her with her own bra. He fled to Miami when he realized that the police were onto him, but he was eventually caught. He was charged with 11 murders and sentenced to life in prison. He killed himself while in prison in the exact same way that he had killed his victims. Now let's come to Elisa Lam. Elisa Lam was born on April 30, 1991 in Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada. Her parents immigrated from Hong Kong and owned a restaurant in Burnaby near Vancouver. Little is known about her childhood, but Eliza was diagnosed with bipolar depression and frequently shared her struggles on a blog called Ether Fields from 2010 to 2012. This blog is still available online. Her last full-length post, dated April 22, 2012, ended with her writing, quote, "God, I hate you so much," end quote, showing her intense mental struggle. It's important to know that she was going through this depression, she was suffering. I'm not going to read out every single blog post, but just to summarize, she was struggling and she was trying to document all her struggles in her blog post. I'll link it in the description, you can always read it. Eliza was worried that her transcript would look suspicious because so many times she had written about her struggles, and she didn't want everyone to read this blog, especially the people who were going to get her into a university. And so she decided that she would stop blogging. After blogging for a little over 2 years, Eliza announced that she would be abandoning her current blog for a new one, and she had just started on Tumblr. This was called Nouvelle Nouveau. This new blog mostly featured fashion, photos, quotes, and a few posts written by her. Eliza had no history of suicidal thoughts or attempts, although one report claimed that she had previously gone missing for a small period of time. She had a history of not taking her medication that was also mentioned after she was found dead. When she would not take her medication on time, she was hospitalized at least once during these episodes. Most of the sources would say that she was a student at the University of British Columbia, although she was not registered at the beginning of 2013. In 2013, to take a break from her studies, she planned a trip to California, intending to fly to San Diego and travel north through Los Angeles and Santa Cruz before returning to Vancouver. Before her departure, she had a small party with family and friends. Her parents were worried about her traveling alone, but Eliza assured them that she would call them every single day. She left for the trip on January 22, 2013. She made it to San Diego, where she visited the San Diego Zoo and other tourist spots. From there, she traveled to Los Angeles and checked into the Cecil Hotel. Initially, she stayed in a shared room, but it is said that her roommates reported her odd behavior, and because of this, she was moved to a private room. Eliza was last seen on January 31st, 2013 by hotel employees and Katie Offen, an employee at a nearby bookstore. This was also the last day that Eliza contacted her parents and the day she was scheduled to check out of the hotel. When her parents didn't receive a call from her the next day, they flew to Los Angeles to help the police search for her. And her sudden disappearance from the hotel was alarming. When Eliza's parents and the police searched the room at the Cecil Hotel, they found no such clues about her whereabouts. The LAPD conducted an exhaustive search of the entire hotel, checking every room and speaking with residents, but they found no signs of Eliza. On February 6, 2013, the LAPD held a press conference to provide an update. They mentioned that Eliza was last seen at the Cecil Hotel on January 31st. They asked the public to help them find her. On February 13, 2013, the LAPD released a surveillance video from one of the hotel elevators. And this was the last known footage of Eliza. This video became crazy viral. If you have ever heard about the story of Eliza Lam and the Cecil Hotel, you would have definitely seen this elevator video. This video went viral on YouTube. It shows Eliza behaving oddly. She enters the elevator, presses several buttons, and stands in the back corner. She then looks out of the elevator, steps in and out multiple times. She seems to be hiding from someone or something. Her movements are erratic and perplexing. The surveillance footage then shows Eliza outside the elevator, moving her arms strangely and looking at the hallway. The elevator door remains open despite all the buttons being pressed, which is shocking. If she had pressed every single button, the elevator door should have closed immediately. Eliza is then seen re-entering the elevator and she presses even more buttons and then steps out again, standing just outside the elevator and waving her arms oddly. It looks as if she is dancing. Her behavior seems erratic, as if she was high on something. Despite the button being lit, the elevator door still remains open, longer than it should. Finally, Eliza leaves the view of the camera entirely. She gets into the elevator, and that is when the elevator door closes. How did the elevator door stay open this long? Did no one press the button in any of the floors? Eliza herself pressed so many buttons, and we know what happens with an elevator. You get in and the doors start to close. A second or two maybe, but Eliza was out for minutes. How did the elevator door remain open for minutes? She hadn't kept anything to jam it. That is a mystery that has not been solved to date. Many people have tried to understand what happened to her and why was she behaving like this, as if someone was there. It's just that the camera could not capture that person. Around 20 days after Eliza Lam was last seen, guests at the hotel started complaining about weak water pressure and weird tasting water. Some even said that the water had turned black or brown before clearing up. The maintenance worker checked the water tanks on the roof, and that is when they found Eliza's body in one of them. It was a shocking discovery because those tanks are not easy to get into. They had to cut the tank open to get her out. Eliza was naked and her clothes and the hotel key was kept nearby. They also found sand-like substance in the tank. Her autopsy initially couldn't determine the cause of death, but later on it was said that it was accidental drowning. It's still a huge mystery to how did she get into the tank, because just to get her out, they had to cut the tank open. It was said that Eliza's body was moderately decomposed and bloated. It was almost greenish. I mean, she was in the tank for multiple days. So of course, there was no evidence of any physical trauma or sexual assault. It didn't even look like a suicide. Although it was said to be a suicide, it didn't look like a suicide, and no one was clear to what happened to her. It is also said that when the toxicology report came, there was some sort of drugs in her system, She was, of course, taking her medication at that time, but the medication that she was taking, that amount was very less in her body, which means she had skipped some of her medicines. Further investigation said that Eliza had apparently gotten into the tank. The doors and the stairs leading to the hotel's roof were locked, with only the staff having passcodes and keys. And if someone tried to forcefully open them, then an alarm would go off. So how did Eliza reach there? The only place that the police could think of was the hotel's fire escape. A video posted about Eliza's death shows that the roof was easily accessible by the fire escape and that 2 of the water tank lids were open. Now, apart from how she got on the roof, there are also questions about whether she got to the tank herself or did someone get her into the tank. The 4 tanks were 4x8 foot cylinders and were on top of concrete blocks with no fixed access. Hotel workers had to use a ladder to look at the water, and the tanks were protected by heavy lids, and it would be difficult, I would say close to impossible, for a person to open them, to get inside, and then close the lid after the person has gone inside the tank. So how did Eliza close the lid after she was inside the tank? That mystery has also not been solved. The hotel employee who found the body said that the lid was open at the time, removing the issue of how did she get inside. Police dogs searched the hotel, but they couldn't find anything. People initially thought that Eliza may have been on drugs, and that's why she was going in and out of the elevator and trying to see who is outside. But once the toxicology report came, it is said that she did not have much of drugs in her system, only her own medication, that too in lesser quantity than what she should have been taking. It is also said that she may have had some drugs in her system which broke down as her body decomposed in the tank. They also suggest that she may have taken rare drugs that normal screen would not catch. The very low level of her prescription drugs in her system and the number of pills left in the prescription bottle suggests that she was either under medicating or she had just stopped taking her medication completely. And this not taking her medication could have led to a psychotic episode. Now, the autopsy report had been questioned because it was not complete. It did not say what the results of the rape kit, the fingernail kit, nothing. People have no idea what was there in that report. The report does say that there was some pooling of blood in Eliza's anal area, while some people think that this could be a sexual abuse, while others are not sure. Maybe it was due to decomposition. After Eliza's death, her Tumblr blog started updating on its own. At first, people were scared. In fact, there are a lot of people who will tell you that there might be something at play here, and that's why Eliza's blog is being updated on its own. Maybe someone has access to it, maybe the person who is behind all this. But I just think that she may have scheduled her posts, and that's why they kept on posting after her death until just some time. And then they completely stopped. In September of 2013, Eliza's parents filed a wrongful death lawsuit against the hotel, claiming that they failed to inspect and seek out hazards in the hotel. That because of their mistake, that they did not check that their daughter was found dead. The hotel argued that it was not their fault, that Eliza might have entered the water tanks and they themselves have no idea how she got into the water tanks. In 2015, the suit was dismissed. Now we come to the theories. One popular theory is that of murder. Now, as I said before, Richard Ramirez was just an example. He was not there during Eliza Lam's time, but it is possible that there may have been another serial killer or another killer at that time, and that person may have murdered her and then put her into a water tank. It is also suspected that maybe one of the hotel employees did this because they were the only ones who had access to the water tanks. So that is also a possibility. But the police never went through with this murder theory. They always thought that it was suicide, and so they never went and questioned anyone. It is hard to understand why a hotel would allow access to the roof where someone could potentially harm themselves. I don't know exactly about her height, but she was very thin, and if you see her photos, she looks very petite. So, for a person of her stature to go and lift up the lid and get into the water tank, it should not be that easy. So, in this case, the Cecil Hotel should have been more careful. Without knowing the results of the rape kit, it's difficult to determine if she was murdered. Her autopsy did not find any drugs, as I said, and so it was said that this was accidental drowning. That's what the police came up with in the end. Another theory suggests, which is not a very popular theory but something to note, is that there seemed to be a connection between Eliza Lam and a tuberculosis test called Lam Eliza. Some people believe that she was part of a campaign to infect the homeless population with tuberculosis. Although this was never proven and we are not sure about it, but some believe that she was there to infect these people. And then comes one of the most scary ones. That is, Eliza was playing the elevator game. Now in the elevator game, you press certain buttons and the elevator takes you to another dimension. Something that Eliza may have been playing this game, she was acting strangely because she could see something that no one else could. So basically you press a couple of buttons and it takes you to the underground. That is another dimension where the dark lives. When carefully looking at the surveillance footage, you can see some dark shadowy forms, but it could be anything. Another theory suggests that Eliza Lam, after staying in a nearby hotel, was drawn to the Cecil Hotel because of its dark history. She may have thought that it was the perfect place to commit suicide because remember, a lot of people committed suicide in the hotel. So maybe she decided to choose this. But even if she was there to commit suicide, why would she go through all this trouble of, opening and getting into a water tank and then closing the lid and then drowning? This does not seem plausible. The most widely accepted theory is that Eliza was not taking her medication properly, she had bipolar depression, she was displaying strange behavior, maybe she was having a manic episode. The toxicology report also showed that she was not taking enough medication as she must have. She was taking lesser or not taking at all, and maybe this was affecting her, and finally it led to her committing suicide. And regarding why she was pressing all the buttons, she was not wearing her glasses at that time. She usually wears her glasses, so maybe she could not see without her glasses and she was just trying to press any and all buttons whether she can reach her correct floor. This is the final theory that everyone settled with. The theory continues by suggesting that Eliza made her way to the roof after the elevator incident, possibly through an unlocked door, a window, or even a fire escape. She then climbed through the small hatch on the water tank lid. The tank was less than half full at that time, so Eliza found herself stuck in the tank. Her clothes were weighing her down and it was difficult for her to swim, so maybe she removed her clothes so that it would be easy for her to swim. But unfortunately, she could not get out and she drowned. Now, regarding this theory, it is not sure if people did not hear her screams. Did she immediately die? Did she hit herself? Or was she alive for multiple days and no one could hear her out, no one could help her, and she slowly drowned to death? No one is sure of that. I sincerely hope she didn't have a painful death. To end this episode, according to me, I would say, why would someone take so much trouble to go through so much to commit suicide? And there are so many things that are not adding up. How did she get in? Did no one see her? Did no one feel the water pressure for days? Does no one check the tank at all? Was this all just a psychotic episode? Or was someone behind this? And could that someone have been from the hotel? Or was it a serial killer? I'm gonna put a question at the end in Spotify. I would really love to know, what do you think? And if you are watching this on YouTube, Please let me know in the comments, what do you think happened to Eliza? And what do you think happened to all the other people? Did they just come to the hotel to commit suicide? Or was there something in this hotel that caused them to commit suicide? And above everything, people think that the Cecil Hotel is haunted, and that's why many people come there and die. Do you think the hotel is haunted? Or was this all separate incidents clubbed together after Eliza died? Now I want to end this episode with something. On June 13, 2015, a death occurred in the Cecil Hotel. The body of a 28-year-old man was found outside the hotel. Some say that he may have committed suicide by jumping from the hotel, although it is not known. The man's identity is not known. So what do you think about the Cecil Hotel and all the deaths connected to it? The hotel is still there, it's open under a different name. Would you ever stay there? A big thank you to all my fellow listeners who have been listening and supporting this episode. Your reviews, your listens mean a lot. If you love this episode, if you love the stories that I put out, then please do leave a rating on whichever podcasting platform you're listening from. It would really mean the world to me. Other than this, I also have a YouTube and an Instagram page. I'll link it in the description. Do check it out. I have different stories on Instagram, and I'm planning to put out some short horror stories on YouTube. So do subscribe to my YouTube channel and stay tuned. I am also an author, love fiction stories. If you want to check out my free fiction book, I'll link it in the description. I'll also link my other account in the description where I talk about fiction writing, travel, and I also will soon start sharing fiction stories. So stay tuned. So do follow me there. Thank you so much for everything. That's all for this week. Stay kind, stay safe, and see you next week.